everybody? Welcome back to another edition of the Everything College Basketball Podcast, episode 186. I'm, of course, your host, Josh Burton, and joining me today for the season finale, we've got our good friend Michael DeRosa over here from Ding and DeRosa Podcast, also over here at the House of College Hoops, and then the co-founder of Everything College Basketball, my brother, Mr. Peyton Burton. Gentlemen, UConn's made history. They've went back-to-back for the first time since Florida did it in 06-07. We've got a lot to talk about the Huskies, where this team ranks amongst the all-time greats, where Dan Hurley ranks amongst coaching right now and potentially all-time greats. We're going to get into all that and more today. As people, of course, I do want to mention we are live as normal on the Facebook, the Twitter, the YouTube. I think we're on the House College Hoops with Twitter. Like always, follow along with us live. Leave your comments below. This is going to get a little explosive at the start of this podcast here. But if you are watching, follow along with the fun. Leave your comments below. We will share them as always. Our buddy here, Connor McCabe, right here, has said, is anybody surprised about UConn? The answer is no. We all predicted this back in November once we seen them take the floor. Connor, here later in the show, we will talk UConn. But boys, I want to start with the biggest news of the weekend. The biggest news, and honestly kind of overshadowed the national championship game last night. The idea, as you see on the lower graphic here, John Calipari leaves Kentucky for Arkansas. Now, the news first started to break Sunday afternoon. I think I first seen it about 6 p.m. Kind of dismiss it because you hear rumors all the time. 2 hours later, then all of a sudden he's agreed to the job. And then about 40 hours later, we didn't hear nothing. There was video of Cal walking his dog. He got interviewed by a local Lexington reporter. Nothing. Then about an hour and a half, 2 hours ago, as we record right now, he made it official with a goodbye video that he posted on his socials. AD from Kentucky, Mitch Barnhart, confirmed that departure. And so we sit here. We don't know the full details yet, but we know Coach Calipari is leaving for Arkansas on an apparent 5-year deal. The money's still to be determined. I'm sure it's going to be a hefty payday. With that, all that being said, Peyton DeRosa, your guys' thoughts on John Calipari walking away from Kentucky after 15 years to start a new adventure in Fayetteville, Arkansas?
Well, we talked about it on our little video we did, so I'm going to go ahead and let DeRosa give his thoughts because we've already basically talked about it. My thoughts is bad timing, a lot of stuff that's happened. It kind of overshadowed the title game last night. A lot of stuff's transpired, so I'll let DeRosa go ahead and talk.
Yeah, so I just want to go I'm going to go through my process of how, not my process, but like how kind of I heard the news. So first time I saw it, I'm like, this is just bullshit. Like, man just like wants to get his name out there, whatever, right? And then like it slowly gets more legit, but like I was really tired that day. Like I didn't buy it. So it's just like, I'm just going to pass out. But then like I didn't. And then slowly it's like, this is real. And I don't think I slept till like 4 a.m. that day just because 4 a.m. is an exaggeration, but like Cal leaving Kentucky is crazy. And the Kentucky fan base is crazy. And the Arkansas fan base is crazy. All the drama with Chicken Man, the Tyson Chicken guy being Cal's buddy. So that's how he's getting the job. It's perfectly college basketball. And there's going to be so much more drama that unfolds after this, but just such a weird situation, like a weird time for all this to happen. It didn't feel real when I first heard it. And like now just letting it settle in, it still feels weird. Like, I don't know how normal I'm going to be when I see like Calipari on the sidelines of Arkansas next year. That just feels weird to me. It just does.
Well, they've already on inside Bud Walton Arena, they've already got the image up that I shared to the ECB Facebook group of Cal in a red not tux, but a red suit. So they're already preparing. And if you hear, like, obviously rumors are going to float, but from pretty good sources, you hear that this kind of started back on either Thursday or Friday. Kind of the wheels started to get it to turn here with Cal going to Arkansas. I mean, it did come out of left field. And to those reports, Matt Norlander of CBS broke this down Sunday night and talked about this. He had heard that Cal apparently back in February had interest in the Ohio State job. He was basically looking for a way out. And then to John Fanta's point that he tweeted or put out yesterday, that basically Cal didn't feel wanted no more. And we've all talked about this. I've wrote articles about it, especially after the loss to Oakland. BBN was restless. Like, you cannot be at Kentucky this long, and you can't have this stretch where you lose two major upsets in the first round. You don't win SEC titles. You're not winning tournament titles. It's just not Kentucky's success. Well, then Mitch Barnhart said he's bringing him back, but then you hear these reports from Matt Norlander that says back in February at the earliest that Cal, through his team, was kind of putting feelers out to Ohio State, but the timing didn't align, and then Ohio State got hot. They hired Jake Diebler, so that was off the table. You also hear that he was kind of interested in the Michigan job, didn't really pan out. But I think the funniest thing that set this whole thing in motion, that would just the way this world works, SMU letting go of Rob Lanier set this whole thing in motion. They fire him after 2 years because they wanted a bigger name to lead them into their new adventure in the ACC. They fire him. That brings Andy Enfield, who needed a lifeline, out of USC. He goes to SMU for big money. That opens USC up. That brings Eric Musselman out of Arkansas to go back to the West Coast where he's from and where his family's comfortable at, takes over USC, which, by the way, again, it was being reported Cal had interest in USC, but the timing, money, NIL didn't line up the way he wanted it to. So now Arkansas is open. Cal's always had a weird affection for Arkansas. If you hear him back in his Memphis days, he used to praise them, even at Kentucky, talk about their fan base and everything. And this was Cal's lifeline out. So I want to ask you guys, the full timeline that we know of is out there that I just mentioned. In my opinion, this is a win. This is a win for John Calipari, who needs a fresh start. He maxed himself out at Kentucky. He said it. He was told by Joby Hall. Joby Hall said it, the legendary Kentucky coach. Kentucky, because of the pressure and the expectations and how much it will take off your lifespan, it's a 10-year job max. Cal was just wrapped up year 15. He needed a fresh start. Obviously, he had kind of bogged out at Kentucky. So Arkansas gives him a fresh start. Arkansas, whether they miss out on Jerome Tang, they miss out on Chris Beard, but they land John Calipari, this is a win for them. Their fans won't have the same expectations as Kentucky, but they get a proven winner for the majority of his career in college that will energize that fan base. That's going to have a shit ton of money, like expendable money for NIL and all that stuff that goes along with it. They have good facilities. They have a good basketball tradition, and they're excited because he's going to bring in NBA talent to Arkansas. And this is a win for Kentucky because we don't have to owe John Calipari $35 million to make him go away. And now there's kind of new life. The fan base can rally behind some of these coaches here in a little bit. We're going to talk about as candidates, but I think this is a win-win-win for all three parties involved. Peyton, your thoughts on all that?
I definitely think it's a win-win-win for all parties involved, and it's crazy because we talked about it Saturday night after this rumors really started to break and really get going. Saturday night when we did our live video, we went 40 minutes talking about this whole situation. Go check that out now if you haven't. It's on our Facebook group. It's still up, I'm pretty sure. But we talked about it, and I brought up this point, nobody leaves $33 million on the table to go to Arkansas or any job in the country if shit didn't happen, if shit didn't hit the fan down there in Kentucky, whether it's the fan base, whether it's Coach Cal, which Mitch Barnhart. We've already talked about the relationship with the boosters, how it's soured. Me and DeRosa are both in Truly's Discord. I'm not going to go in full detail, and I'm barely going to mention it because there's a lot of allegations that I don't want to talk about, and I don't really put my name up there and really get myself in trouble. But a lot of bullshit seems to have been happening between Cal, Mitch Barnhart, and a couple other people that's involved with this, and it does not seem good. The relationship completely soured from the fan base. The fans didn't want him. He thought losing to Oakland, the war of the hatred that was coming towards him was going to die down a little bit. It did not. If anything, it worsened. And he realized that, and he realized it's time for him to go. And he said it in his little video on Twitter that it's time for Kentucky, for everybody. They need a new voice. They need a new leader to lead this program, the greatest program of all time. They need this guy. They need someone else to step up to that. A lot of bullshit that's happened. Like I said, a lot of allegations. If it comes out to being truth, doesn't really make Calipari look good on his end. But again, allegations, I'm not going to go for detail on it, but it's definitely a win-win-win.
DeRosa, do you agree? Is it a win for everybody involved in this scenario?
If I was Calipari, I'm sorry, I am taking the $30 million. You were going to have to pay me that thing to leave. Dude, I don't care.
Even over your peace of mind, though, because you hear him, he wants to feel wanted, and it was very, very uncomfortable in Lexington.
And he also has the money. I don't have the money, so I can't speak to it, how much it means to him. It's very different for him. I will say it's definitely a win for Arkansas. I think Calipari is going to do better than Musselman did.
You're going to see a motivated Cal.
Yeah, exactly.
I believe we're going to see a very pissed off and very motivated John Calipari.
The one thing I would say is I will see if it's a win for Calipari in the coming years, but for now it feels like he needed a new opportunity and he resets his clock to where he can be coaching for the next 5-10 years. Motivated Calipari coaching for the next 5-10 years, that's a win. I think it will end up being a win for Kentucky, but I don't want to say it yet just because there is, I don't think it happens, but there is a chance the hire, we get a shitstorm.
And that's fair. There's always that opportunity, Peyton. I'll let you go in just a second. There's always that opportunity, depending on who they hire. Yeah. We're going to talk about potential candidates and kind of where we think they lie in a minute. But for Kentucky, and I'll speak for BBN since I am a part of it, we just needed, like Cal said, honestly, we needed a new voice. We needed to stop hearing the same old lines about succeed and proceed, meaning do well here, go to the NBA. We're tired of hearing about my biggest night is draft night because I get to see my kids graduate to the NBA. All these little catchy catchphrases, I guess, or corny catchphrases, they were awesome when we were winning and making Final Fours 4 out of 5 years. But when you're not doing that, that's not what you want to hear. And it's awesome. Whatever coach comes in, and you best believe Kentucky's going to get a good coach. They're going to be better X's and O's than Cal. Now, will they be as good as like motivator and all that, team builder kind of? The jury's still out. But X's and O's, where we sorely lacked, that's going to be better. So that's exciting. Sorry, Peyton, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, I was going to make a very small point. I wanted to touch on what Michael was talking about. I do think in the long run, it definitely will be a win, a bigger win for Kentucky with him leaving. But it's a win right now because clearly the fan base did not want them there. Clearly there's some issues between Mitch Barnhart, the athletic director, and Coach Cal. The relationship soured. He doesn't have to pay that $33 million anymore. That's why it's a win right now to where Cal can go there. Arkansas doesn't have to pay that buyout, and neither does Kentucky to get him out there. So I think as of now, it's definitely a win-win-win for everybody involved, Kentucky, Arkansas, and Cal. It's a win situation for all of them right now. And I think eventually, depends on who Kentucky hires. We'll talk about candidates in a minute. Depends on who Kentucky hires. It has a chance to be a bigger win than Arkansas. But as of now, I think Cal's going to do a great job down there at Fayetteville, Arkansas. Bud Walton Arena is going to be crazy. That return game when they come at Rupp Arena next year is going to be bigger than Ed Cooley going back to Providence. It's going to be bigger than Chris Beard going back to Texas Tech. Like, it's going to be the biggest game. Doesn't matter if the teams are ranked or not. Doesn't matter how good the teams are. It's going to be the biggest topic heading into that week when he finally goes back to Rupp Arena. In red, by the way, which is going to be weird.
Yeah, it's going to be very weird. And let's talk about some of the numbers we do know as far as this move to Arkansas that's been reported out there. I mean, for those who don't know, Arkansas has got mega donors. Mega donors. DeRosa mentioned Tyson's meat, right? All your little dino nuggets, that's Tyson. So, and him and Cal are like golfing buddies. They're good friends. They have been for a long time. He's a billionaire. You're talking about Sam Walton and the Walton family. Walmart, ring a bell, anybody? $100 billion organization. They've got my JB Hunt, the trucking company, $1 billion corporation that are all kind of boosters and donors in some capacity to Arkansas athletics, have pledged money to bring Cal in. So none of those Cal are going to get probably like $8 or $9 million a year across 5 years, but he knows coming in that we've heard numbers between 5 and 6 million annually in NIL alone. That makes them probably like number 1 or number 2 in NIL funds for basketball alone. They've got brand new facilities like new practice court. They've got an insane home court advantage there at Bud Walton Arena. We've said it for years. When that place is lively, it's one of the top 3 or 4 best environments in college basketball. So when you look at the numbers, I mean, Cal, obviously you hear no shock. He's already working the recruiting class that he's got coming in for now to Kentucky in 2024. He's been working to flip them. Him and his staff has been working to flip them. We've already seen Carter Knox has reopened his recruitment. You got to imagine Boogie Flan follows Calipari to Arkansas. Jaden Quaintus, his people came out yesterday, that he at least wants to hear where Mitch Barnhart and Kentucky are planning to go, because he may stay at Kentucky. But when you look at the talent, and then not to mention the guys that Cal may keep from Arkansas that's in the portal now, like a Tremont Mark or guys like that. The point being, Cal's going to have all the resources available to him from rich-ass people in a good environment, and he's going to be able to bring talent like he never left Kentucky and Memphis. So when you guys look at Arkansas in the immediate future, there's no reason they probably shouldn't be a top 20, top 25 team immediately. Is that what your guys' feeling is on that?
Go ahead, Michael.
No, on Calipari being a top 20 team immediately at Arkansas. I think that's expecting a little too much. Granted, we don't know who he's going to bring over. I don't expect he brings every recruit over, just out of how these things work. That said, I don't know as much as Josh does on the particular recruitments and all that. I know Boogie Flan kind of considered St. John's, but like not really. I don't remember anything about Quinton's. I don't remember much about Carter Knox. Actually, I think Carter Knox follows him, but I don't know. I think they'll be very good next year, but like expecting top 15, 20 for like the entire season, I don't know. It feels a little high to me, but like it also seems realistic the more I talk about it. So I'm gonna have to shut up and think about it for a second.
Yeah, we'll see. It depends on who he gets in the portal, because that's going to be very, very important. Trademark Mark already declared, or not declared, but he's already entered the transfer portal. If they can somehow bring him back, along with talented freshman Devo Davis, if they can bring at least Trademark Mark, maybe Devo Davis back, a couple of guys. Trayvon Bazell already announced he's declared for the NBA draft. If they can bring back a couple of guys, a couple of veterans, and bring in a couple of portal guys, then maybe they could be top 20, top 25 all season long. But I do think they'll have a lot of talent next year. Jaden Quaintance, whoever gets him, whether he stays at Kentucky or whether he goes to Arkansas, he will have to be there for 2 years. He's too young. He's not eligible to go to the draft right away. He's not going to be a one-and-done top player. So that bodes really well for whoever gets him, whether he goes to Arkansas or he stays with Kentucky and waits to see who they hire as a new head coach down there. So Jaden Quaintance, sweepstakes is going to get very intriguing. Carter Knox, you mentioned him. He was considering, one of his schools was Louisville. It was a really weird list. It was like USF, Kentucky, Louisville, and then
OTE.
It was a really weird list. And now Louisville, when they was recruiting him, that's when Kenny Payne was there. Kenny Payne helped Kevin Knox when he was at Kentucky, blah, blah, blah. So there's that relationship. Obviously, KP is gone, so I don't know if Kelsey will get into those sweepstakes or not, but we'll wait and see. It's going to be interesting. I'll wait and see. They'll have to get kids in the portal and see if they can bring a couple kids back. But I think he's going to do great in a year's time, though.
And you got to think, too, Aaron Bradshaw's in the portal. He's going to try his NBA luck, but I wouldn't be surprised he follows.
I would be very surprised if he follows Cal.
I doubt he does.
Yeah.
Him and Piero, I don't think they come to Cal.
Yeah, you know what? I agree with that, actually, because I got thinking about that when I said it, because Bradshaw looked a little frustrated. He didn't get the playing time he wanted. But I wouldn't be surprised, the point being, like Billy Richmond's also in this class. Really good combo guard, more defensive than he is offensive right now. But he would be an immediate help. His dad played for Cal back in the day. They've got that relationship. If I remember right, Billy's from Camden, but his dad's like in Memphis or working out of Memphis, and Fayetteville, Memphis is not that far away. So wouldn't be surprised if basically this recruiting class follows Cal, or the majority of them. So the last thing on Cal to Arkansas before we turn our attention to the Kentucky aspect of this is, Cal's not a young man anymore, but I expect, we all said it, a very motivated, a very hungry now, pissed off Cal, because all he's heard about, for one, he doesn't feel loved at his quote unquote dream job after 15 years of service. So he's going to want to prove a point. People have railed on him about his roster constructions and failures post-COVID, so he's going to want to prove a point. I don't expect we get 2009, 2010 John Calipari and have that John Wall effect. But I would bet any type of money I could bet right now that Arkansas next year, Cal will have a point to prove, and they will be legitimate SEC contenders and really good, because here's the analogy, and I heard it. Credit to Matt Jones from KSR for saying this. I think you guys will understand. What's happening now, you can equivalent Cal to being that older married guy that had been married to his wife for a while. Things go sour because he stops working on it, doesn't really care as much or whatever, not putting the effort into it, gets a divorce, and then becomes single and was like, oh, yeah, I'm going to start working out. I'm going to get in shape. I'm going to do all the stuff that I stopped doing with my old wife, gets remarried, starts doing it with his new wife, to kind of prove a point. I think we're going to see that with his new wife at Arkansas. I think in the immediate short-term future, the next year or two, we'll see a motivated Calipari, and Arkansas will be really, really, really good and really tough to play for opposing teams, both in the SEC and come NCAA tournament times. When you guys look at the immediate future for Cal, what do you see with him at Arkansas?
Here's my expectations for next year. And you guys can tell me if I'm wrong. You can agree, whatever. I think if you can finish top 5 in the SEC next year and obviously get back in the NCAA tournament and potentially get maybe to the Sweet 16, definitely win at least a game, don't get knocked out in the first round. I think that would be a good first year under Cal. And then the second year, that's when I think he'll be top 15 good. They'll get a lot of recruits in, get a lot of portal kids in. He'll develop some type of a culture down there. I think give him a year to build and see how and to adapt to the change of scenery down there in Fayetteville. It's a whole different ball game being at Kentucky than it is at Arkansas. It's going to get rowdy. The fan base is behind him. I think if you can finish top 5 in the SEC, make the NCAA tournament, win a couple games, potentially get to the Sweet 16, I'll call that a successful first year under Coach Cal.
I'd say lower ceiling than he has at Kentucky. Just like lower ceiling than like the best Kentucky teams. Just like won a natty, but I'm more so talking like the last 5 years of Kentucky teams. Like we watched those teams and we were like, okay, like they'd have to have everything bounce the right way to make a Final Four. I think it's going to be lower than that, just ceiling wise. And next season, I don't really know what to expect because Arkansas was such a weird situation this year that I almost feel like everyone just leaves and it's just like, yeah, I don't want to go back to Arkansas. And then Cal's going to have to try to win over some of the guys he had. It's going to be an odd situation. Next year, make the tournament. I think top 5 SEC, Peyton was a good shout. Make the tournament. If they can win a game, I think that'd be solid for them all.
Let me ask you this. You just say yes or no. Eric Musselman's 4 years at Arkansas. Sweet 16, back-to-back Elite Eights, and then obviously missed the tournament this year. Does Cal's first 4 years at least do as well as that or surpass it? Because if you think about it as a whole, Cal's going to have more money at his expense or disposal there with all the money we've talked about that's going to be pumped in that Musselman had, but Musselman back-to-back Elite Eights plus the Sweet 16 and, of course, one tournament miss. Is Cal going to at least equal that or better that? Because if not, that's not a very good sign, right?
I think on a Cal team, you might be more likely to win a regular season title. Did Musselman win an SEC tournament title?
He did not.
Yeah. So if Cal wins one of those, like wins an SEC tournament title, wins an SEC regular season title, but doesn't have the same tournament success, like he doesn't reach an Elite Eight, rather, he might make 3 Sweet 16s or something like that. What would we say then? Would we say that's a better tenure than Musselman or worse? Do we just define it by tournament success?
That's a good qualifier because I would think it would depend. Like if he goes there, let's say, and I don't know, 28-5 a couple years in a row, gets like a 1 or 2 seed, and then just gets bounced early. I mean, it depends, right? But I'm just saying on the whole, I mean, Musselman had a good run at Arkansas, and he didn't have near the money that's about to be pumped in for Cal at Arkansas.
To be fair, I will say Musselman's teams that made some deep runs in the tournament, they got a couple fortunate draws. Like the 3 seed, they beat Colgate round 1. Then they go out there, beat Texas Tech round 2. That was a Mac McClung team, beat them really close. Then they get Oral Roberts round 3. That's pretty good draw.
That's fair. And that's the way the tournament lies, too.
New Mexico State, too. It's not their fault, to be clear. But like, I also don't know if Cal's going to get that same draw.
Then last year, they knocked out Kansas, though. So, and then they ran into UConn.
Someone was injured for Kansas. No, Bill Self wasn't there.
Bill Self wasn't there. So, yeah, I mean, obviously things have to go your way, right? Peyton, yes or no, real quick, so we can move on to Kentucky part of this.
That's a hard question. I'm going to say no, but if his first 4 years, if he can win 2 SEC regular season titles, maybe win an SEC tournament championship, and God forbid if he gets to 1 Final Four, I don't care what he does in the other year, I might say that's a better tenure than what Musselman was at Arkansas, because you're making a Final Four, you're winning an SEC regular season championship, you're potentially winning a tournament championship, something Muss didn't do at both times. All 3 of those accomplishments Muss didn't do at all in his tenure at Arkansas. So I think if he accomplished stuff like that, then I'd say you have a better tenure, but it's a hard question to answer right now.
Shout out to the 210 people and counting. We're only 25 minutes in, and we're at 210 people, guys. Your support this whole season, especially during the month of March and April, has been phenomenal. So thank you. Keep sharing us with people. Keep leaving your comments. But let's flip our attention to Kentucky. And this is where it'll get a little personal, and I'll try. But let's focus first on why this is a win for Kentucky. We already kind of touched on it. We needed new people. We just needed somebody new. The Cats needed somebody new. It's too long of a tenure. Too long. I mean, 4 years without with only 1 tournament win, no SEC titles, is eternity in Lexington. And it just is. And that's the standard that's been set across almost 100 years worth of, over 100 years worth of college basketball at this point at a place like Kentucky, which is an out and outright blue blood. Let's talk about this candidates, and then the job is where I think things will get a little interesting here. I will say this. This has been, and always will be, until future notice, the biggest, the best job in this sport that we love so much. Don't take my word for it. I can read off everything. As a matter of fact, I got some stuff pulled up here. AI. I even asked AI, tell me why Kentucky's basketball job number one. They give me 5 reasons. Rich tradition and success. Talks about the national championships, the coaches, and all that. NBA talent factory. It'll die down, obviously, some with Cal out there and not there no more. But it's not like Kentucky didn't put Hall of Famers in the NBA before Cal. Passionate fan base. Nobody's as crazy and as deep or runs deep as Big Blue Nation. High stakes environment. Kentucky basketball operates under intense scrutiny. Every move is dissected, every win celebrated, and every loss analyzed. Coaches who thrive under pressure find this exhilarating. And then recruiting powerhouse. Again, guys, I hate this notion that John Calipari was the University of Kentucky, that like Kentucky just never gets recruits before Cal and that we won't get them after Cal. That's just not true. It's never been true, and it won't be true now. Kentucky is a powerhouse when it comes to recruiting, and when we talk about these candidates, this won't slow down. It'll only slow down in terms of high-level multitude of NBA talent at once. But do not get it mistaken. Kentucky will always remain a recruiting powerhouse. And then why is Kentucky considered the best job? I don't know. 8 national championships, 5 different coaches, the only program in history to have 5 different coaches win a national championship. National Coach of the Year 14 times. Adolph Rupp did it 5. Joby Hall 1. Eddie Sutton gets forgotten in this, but his couple of years prior to getting caught for cheating and all that stuff, they had really good teams under Eddie Sutton, and then probation got kicked in and all that. Rick Pitino did it twice. Tubby Smith 3 times. John Calipari twice. National Coach of the Year. We're talking about Final Fours. Let me pull it up here. I mean, I'm not going to read them all off, but they're right there with Final Fours. Every major statistic, Kentucky's either 1 in or they're number 2 in. National titles 2. All-time wins number 1. Final Fours number 2 to North Carolina. Most All-Americans. Most coaches to win a national championship. And Kentucky, not only the coaches win a national championship, but name all these coaches that coached at Kentucky that went off and did better than the run at Kentucky. Adolph Rupp was only at Kentucky, obviously. Joby Hall was only at Kentucky. Eddie Sutton never, even in those couple years, never had a run at Oklahoma State like he did at Kentucky. Although he did make a Final Four, his Kentucky teams for those 3 years were better. Rick Pitino, he wins the title at Louisville, but he was so dominant in the 90s. We've said that he stayed there, he would probably be the all-time wins leader. Tubby Smith, he leaves for Minnesota, and he leaves for Memphis, and he goes to High Point. He was never as good as he was at Kentucky. John Calipari, we'll exclude Billy Clyde Gillespie because that is what it is. But John Calipari, he was never this good at Memphis, never this good at UMass, and he won't be this good at Arkansas. It's the job. If you perform, you will have every resource that you ever need at this job. Yes, there is pressure, but if you're a competitor, you can thrive in this with a passionate fan base that backs you. It is a basketball school. Sorry, Mark Stoops and football. It has always been and always will be a passionate basketball school. It is a national brand, no matter what anybody tries to tell you that the brand's fallen off. Just go to any bookstore, any mall in America that sells college shirts. Kentucky's going to be one of the first shelves you see. Drake has his own Kentucky line. We can go on and on and on. This is the best job in college basketball, and it's the biggest, bar none. With that being said, the list of candidates, we've all heard of 4 or 5 of them. The top 3, it seems to be narrowed down as of now. DeRosa, I already know you're going to say something, so we'll talk about this. Danny Hurley, Billy Donovan, and Nate Oates was on there. I heard he kind of dropped off for whatever reason. We talked about that. But it was Danny Hurley, Billy Donovan. Peyton, why am I going blank on the other one here?
Scott Drew.
Scott Drew, thank you. Scott Drew. Those seem to be kind of tier 1A. We'll talk about them. Tier B or tier 2 is not bad, but the point being, we're going to name 5, 6, 7 coaches. Kentucky gets any of these, we're gravy next year and beyond. But your guys' thoughts on anything I just said?
There is zero chance Dan Hurley takes this job.
Hold on. No.
Never. Rule number one, never put anything at zero.
Fair.
There's a chance.
Just more so me thinking about it from this perspective, and keep in mind, coaches probably don't think like this, but Dan Hurley's shtick would not work at Kentucky. I do not think it would work at all.
Yes, it would.
I disagree with that entirely.
Dan
Hurley's fucking crazy. That man is a maniac.
Have you ever seen Rick Pitino back in the early mid-90s just losing his ever-loving mind? Dan Hurley, and Peyton, was it you that mentioned it? That Hurley's basically he's like the 90s version of Pitino with his craziness.
He's the modern day.
Fans would eat that shit up in a heartbeat. They would love it.
But carry on.
You guys would know more than me, so I shut up there pretty quickly. I just don't see Dan Hurley leaving 2 national titles at UConn.
That I agree. That I agree.
So listen, I'm not saying I'm actually in agreement with you. I don't think he leaves for a couple reasons. I don't know if the back-to-back titles has much to do with it, though, ironically. I actually think it kind of works against UConn in a way because he doesn't have anything left to prove. He'll say, because he's a competitor, he wants to go for a 3-peat, and he wants to win 4 in a row, and he wants to win 5 of 6 and all that. But when Kentucky calls your name, and his dad would know this, a Hall of Fame high school coach, you got to at least listen. That's how important this job is. You got to at least listen. Because winning back-to-back at UConn is awesome, and winning at UConn is awesome. But if you win at Kentucky at the highest of highest stage, you're a legend forever. And I'm not saying Danny's not on his way because back-to-back titles are special. We're going to talk about that later.
Legend forever.
But I think there's a chance. The only thing that makes me think that he won't is because he is a Northeast guy. He's made that very clear. He loves the Northeast. And his wife. If you could get his wife, Andrea, to agree to come to Lexington, and they're going to pay him more than UConn could ever pay him. UConn's financials are not that great in the athletic department. Read up on it. Kentucky would probably be willing to pay him probably close to $10 million a year, maybe. UConn can't pay that. They just can't. So if she says, whoa, my God, we're going to basically almost 2.5 times the salary, get to live in a beautiful place in Lexington, and coach and be around this community and be at the bluest of blue bloods at Kentucky, I think there's a chance there. But because they're from the Northeast and his wife kind of calls the shots, it seems like, and I don't say that negatively, I think he stays at UConn. But I think he would thrive in the pressure. He's one of those guys that's built for that pressure of Kentucky and would eat it up and really rile the fan base up. And winning at Kentucky is completely different than winning at UConn. Go ahead, Peyton.
I mean, I agree. We've talked about it multiple times. If anybody who doesn't think Kentucky's the number 1 job in college basketball, I think you're a little bit high. Or either that or you're really young. And I'm not going to fault y'all for that. Obviously, you probably need to read up on your history because people are taking what Coach Cal has done in his last 6 years, or even just his entire career at Kentucky. 1 national title, but he's also been to 4 Final Fours. He's been to a couple title games, been to multiple Elite Eights, 1 SEC regular season titles, 1 SEC tournament titles, hit more players in the NBA than any coach in the history of or in recent memory of college basketball. He was the catalyst of the one and done era down there in Kentucky. Before Coach Cal got to Kentucky, who in the hell was doing pro days or whatever they call them before he got there? Like, he envisioned that. That's something he did when he got to Kentucky. He couldn't have done that at Memphis. Yeah, he had Derrick Rose, who's the number 1 pick in that next year's draft. He had really good players. DeJuan Wagner was done there in Memphis, but he couldn't do that at Memphis. He had to do that shit at Kentucky. Kentucky is the bluest of blue bloods. UConn has won 6 national titles from 1999 till now. They just made history and won back-to-back national titles. And guess what happens? Dan Hurley, a week before this, was complaining on some podcast or media site that, UConn hasn't gotten the love that I felt like we needed. We should have gotten all season long, and we've been the most dominant team in the country. If you at Kentucky, you are the number 1 topic every single game. Yeah. SEC Network, ESPN, you're on the top games. You're on primetime television every single game. It's way better than UConn. It's not it's night and day difference.
And you know what's crazy? Stores is basically, it's literally pretty much right in the backyard of ESPN in Bristol, Connecticut. And he's complaining about not getting the full love that this dominant team's getting. Kentucky can do anything that comes up almost. And it's on the bottom ticker. They're talking about it on a PTI. There's just levels of this. And I don't listen. Connecticut is, in the last few years, they've become a blue blood. Full credit to them. But it's different. It is different. And listen to Rick Pitino if you don't listen to me. I'm just a Kentucky mark, right? Rick Pitino says his biggest regret in coaching is leaving the Kentucky Wildcats. He called them Camelot. He says it's the greatest job.
I'm going to have to jump in right now. Rick Pitino says leaving every job is his biggest regret. He said it about Providence that he left us. He didn't want to leave a small Catholic school. He said it. I believe he might have even said it about Greece. He says it about everyone. So
he has said
not to say you are wrong, but to say he says that about literally everyone.
Well, he has said this consistently since basically he came back to the college game, that his biggest regret is leaving Kentucky for the Boston Celtics. The Boston Celtics. And anybody who says Kentucky's brand is taking a hit, I think you're conflating recent success with brand image. Yes, as of right now, basketball on court, Connecticut is a better program as of now than Kentucky. Historically, no chance in hell. Brand, no chance in hell is Kentucky's brand damage. And you want a comparison, the New York Yankees could go the next 5, 6, 7 years finishing dead last in the AL East, having awful records, and people are they're still going to have 80 national televised games. People are still going to win at the opportunity to coach the New York Yankees because they're a huge brand. Same with LA Lakers, same with the Boston Celtics, same with Real Madrid in soccer. Kentucky is that brand in college basketball. There's only one other one that, in my opinion, can compete with them for the best job in college basketball, and that's North Carolina, because they share a lot of the same history. The top 4 jobs, in my opinion, in this sport: Kentucky, North Carolina, Kansas, Duke. Then after that, there's a drop. North Carolina is the only one that can sort of compete, because you talk about name brand and all that stuff. People associate Michael Jordan with them, all that. Carolina is the only one that can compete, go toe-to-toe with Kentucky for this, and Kentucky's the best job. Let's talk about candidates, though. We've already talked about Dan Hurley. Your guys' opinion on the other two. If Kentucky can land Billy Donovan from Chicago, make him say yes on the 3rd attempt, because he's turned it down twice. And you talk about Trilly's Discord. Trilly said that people around Billy Donovan has said he's interested in, or he would be interested in it this time. We know how great Billy Donovan was as a coach. The only thing that would make me nervous, it's a long 10 years since he's been out of the college game. NIL and everything would be a factor, but I think he's smart enough to pick it up quickly, and he would put the right people around him that knows the landscape. If you get Billy Donovan or Scott Drew, I think that's home run hires for Kentucky.
I want to issue a counter to the Billy Donovan point you made, because I think Billy Donovan, for full disclosure, I don't think he takes the job, but I think he would be the number one. He'd be my first call personally. And it'd be because, you know how many teams have GMs?
Oh, I know.
So many. Billy Donovan will hire a GM. That guy will do all the work for him. He'll just be like, all right,
NIL, yeah.
The campus, we're chilling. Yeah. I think he'd have to do less recruiting, which I think would get him
X's
back
and
to
O's.
the game.
He would be. We know how great he is. X's and O's.
And you remember who was the last coach that won back-to-back titles? You remember
Billy the Kid.
He gets angry that Dan Hurley's done it. Billy Donovan gets a job at Kentucky. If I was a fan of another SEC team, I'd be scared shitless if Billy Donovan.
Well, and he has history, because not only coaching at Florida, he knows Lexington very well, but he started his coaching career with Pitino at Kentucky. He was an assistant there in the early 90s, so he knows it. He's familiar. I think any of those 3 are home run hires. If you Scott Drew, and there's BBN that are like, well, he's missed a tournament like 3 times, and he's had first round exits like 6 times, and that one year he won the titles, the COVID year. Guys, he's doing it at Baylor. Do you realize Scott Drew had to inherit the biggest mess we've ever seen in college basketball at a team that had one final or one NCAA tournament appearance in like 60, 70 years prior to his arrival 20 years ago, and he's making the tournament consistently. He recruits at a high level. He's got the number 3 class, maybe the number 1 best player outside of Cooper Flagg coming in next year for Baylor right now, VJ Edgecombe. He can recruit at Baylor. He wins at Baylor. He's made Final Four and won a title at Baylor. So spare me this shit that, he missed it. Baylor. If he's doing that at Baylor, imagine what he could do with Kentucky's resources, fan base, and all that behind him. Scott Drew would be an absolute home run hire for the Cats. Peyton, looks like he had something there.
I love Scott Drew. He was my number 1 for Louisville. He is that dude. He's won a national championship. He's had really good success down at the Big 12. He's won 3 straight like home games against Bill Self at Kansas, something like nobody really does to Kansas. And like he's been a top program, a top coach in the country for a very long time now. It's finally deserving of people who needs to give him respect. And you're comparing Baylor being in Waco, Texas to Kentucky and fucking Lexington, Kentucky. The resources at Waco, Texas and Baylor is not even remotely close to what you get at Lexington, Kentucky for the University of Kentucky Wildcats. Like it's night and day difference. So get out of here with this bullshit that he wouldn't succeed. The only question, the only setback I would potentially have about Scott Drew is he's a very nice guy. He's a very nice individual.
Yeah.
The personality, and not everybody is built for this Kentucky job. You gotta have a little shit to you, and that's something like we'll see if he is a top candidate, which I think he should be. Dan Hurley would be my number one. Billy Donovan will be up there, and Scott Drew's up there as well. Like he should be a candidate for every top job in the country. He's that good.
And so let's start outside of those three. Who else? Because we've heard a bunch of names. Who else would you guys consider that would be a really good hire that would instantly get Kentucky, and get them back to the level which Kentucky deserves to be at? And I'll rattle names off, and you guys tell me yay or nay. Would you take them? To me, I would take Bruce Pearl in a heartbeat. I think he is built for Kentucky. Mm-hmm. The personality, the recruiting, what he's done at Tennessee. He's won SEC titles at Tennessee and Auburn. He's went to a Final Four with Auburn. He recruits well at Auburn. You don't think with Kentucky? Plus, he always raves on Kentucky. Bruce Pearl, would he fit at Kentucky? Yay or nay? Would you take him?
Yep.
Okay.
100%.
We've also heard Shaka Smart. I'm more concerned about Shaka. I think he would do fine, but we've seen this experiment Texas. He's better. Yeah. Marquette's a great job, but it's not Kentucky. And he's tried this at Texas, and it failed. Yeah. I would not. If Shaka was like the last choice and we had to get him, I would take him, obviously.
Yes.
But I think he would be like call 8.
So I'd take him over any like potential mid-major coach in the country. Like I'll take him over them. But the biggest thing about Shaka, he does so much better when he's the underdog than when he is the favorite. And obviously if you're going to Kentucky, you're going to be the favorite for every single game. Every year, it doesn't matter who you play, like you're going to be the favorite. And that's something I don't think he's going to be able to do with the pressure of being at University of Kentucky.
At Kentucky, you have to recruit 5 stars. That was what got him in trouble at Texas. Shaka's a coach who recruits to his system. That's what he does best. And he develops his guys there. I don't think Shaka would take Kentucky, and I don't think Kentucky should take Shaka. I think it's just Shaka knows. It would not surprise me to see Shaka Smart end his coaching career at Marquette.
And it's probably a good fit
for him.
That's a great fit.
And that's another thing too. You helped make my point earlier. Shaka is a really good coach, but he knows how big this Kentucky job is. Mm-hmm. And it would probably be best for him not to take it because of that fear of, failure, because you have to be great there. A couple other names, TJ Otzelberger. I don't see it. He's a West Coast guy. I'm not in love with the style, even though it's great for Iowa State. I don't think it translates to Kentucky.
Agreed.
Yeah. If he takes like any other passing job, like maybe if Kelvin Sampson retires at Houston, he'd fit in at Houston just because they play like the exact same fucking style pretty much. So that would not be a good fit.
More level like Iowa State, like somewhere around that like tier.
Yeah. I've got 2 more I'll mention because I know I'm forgetting somebody, but we got to move on. Sean Miller's name's popped up. At one point when he was with Arizona, I think I would have took him. He could recruit. He's a good X's and O's. But he's another one I just don't think fits what Kentucky needs.
I think he's like your 6th, 7th call. Like he would get the program to a point to where like you are solid. But I feel like Sean Miller's kind of a bridge coach. Like he'd be solid at Kentucky, but like for 5 years. But it's like, all right, we haven't made a Final Four. Yeah. It's like, all right, we want to get another guy in.
It's like the same thing Cal's done the last 5 years. Like you're basically getting another guy like that. Like that's not what you need.
Yeah. It's a good point. I like that term, the bridge coach. I actually think that fits perfectly. Couple other ones real quick. I've heard bandied about. Would Mark Few leave Gonzaga? I actually think Mark Few would fit in well at Kentucky with the exception of recruiting. He's done well at Spokane, though.
Nah.
I think he stays.
He stays.
And then Tommy Lloyd from Arizona.
Stays.
So
I've got one name.
Yeah, I got one name, too.
I've got one name.
Mick Cronin, I'm turning this off.
I am not saying Mick Cronin. I didn't want him for the Louisville job. Why the fuck would I say him for the Kentucky job? The one name I'm thinking of, and I think he's a very underrated coach. I think he wants to get out of the Big Ten. That's Brad Underwood. I think Brad Underwood would do fucking really good at Kentucky. Dude, he's probably one of the best at getting transfers in the country. He recruits at a high level for high school ranks. Like, you're telling me with his style, he just made an Elite Eight. He's got some shit to him. Like, you're really telling me that he wouldn't fit it. He wouldn't be my number one option. He'd be at the next tier below, like the guys that we just mentioned.
Yeah, I think if you
I'd have him over. Go ahead.
No, I'm agreeing with you. I think if you swung and missed on like your top 4 or 5 and he was available and wanted to come, yeah, I think you take him. What about this? Go ahead, DeRosa.
Yeah, I think he'd be more of a bridge coach as well, just because he does really well with bigs. But like, even when he had a guy like Io, did Io really get better from his sophomore to senior season? Like, not really. I think just some with the guards I've seen at Underwood, it's like it is hard to play an Underwood system for a guard. And at Kentucky, let's be real, you got to have good guards.
Here's one I'm not putting him on the list because there's no chance. But this is a guy that if this job opened up, let's say 2 years from now, that I think would be a great candidate, and he's young. And we've seen what he can do already. Todd Golden, I think, is a star in the making at Florida. I think give him a couple years, and you're going to see his name pop up for some mega jobs. Not yet for Kentucky, but I think Todd Golden. But that's it. I mean, wrapping this whole thing up, this was great for Cal to get out.
Can I add a name? I want to see what you think about it.
Yeah, go ahead.
Guy I'm higher on than most. I think if he was able to recruit at a high level, which he's not at his current school, if he was, I think he could be something really solid. High ceiling, very low floor, clearly because the recruiting. What would you think of Mark Pope?
His name's going to be bandied about.
I think he's like right before Sean Miller for me, but like right around there.
His name's going to be bandied about. I'm glad you brought him up because he's a Kentucky legend. He played on those national title teams under Pitino. Pitino's apparently going to try to push for him. You know, a Kentucky guy coming back. He runs a tremendous offense. Like, no doubt, offense would be flowing, beautiful. I just don't know if he's seasoned enough because that is a hard job to come into with all these expectations, and you're still figuring your way out recruiting. And, you know what I'm saying? Maybe in a couple years, Mark would be all right. I just don't know. I think I would take Shaka or Sean Miller or somebody over Mark Pope right now. Ask me in a couple of years, it could be different. But I think he's somebody to keep an eye out on. He's definitely probably going to get some mention because he is a Kentucky legend, played for the Cats. But wrapping this all up, win for Calipari. He gets out, gets a fresh start, new lease on life. Goes to a good program. Win for Arkansas. They get a Hall of Fame coach that's going to bring them all sorts of NBA talent. Revitalizes everything down there. Eventually, it's going to be a win for Kentucky. And I'm going to say this clearly to all my Big Blue Nation people that's kind of nervous, scared. Kentucky will be Kentucky. We've listed off a bunch of names that we get these guys, whether it be Scott Drew or whether you can pull the shocker and get Dan Hurley or Billy the Kid comes back from NBA or a bunch of those guys, Bruce Pearl. We get them, we're going to be rolling again next year in gravy. Be an upgrade in X's and O's, maybe a dip in talent a little bit, but you can almost guarantee all those coaches will get older through the portal immediately. Kentucky will be a threat once again. Fear not, my friends. Kentucky is Kentucky for a reason. We will be Kentucky. We're going to get a good coach. I think Mitch Barnhart knows his legacy and probably jobs on the line. He's going to get the right coach. The Cats will be there. We went long on that segment, so what we're going to do now, let's hear a word from our friends over at Rhythm. March may be over, but Rhythm's AI-based model continues to dominate. Rhythm is the AI sports betting app for player props and game picks. Rhythm stands at the forefront of innovation, offering sports enthusiasts a cutting-edge tool to elevate their betting experience. The app leverages data sets, historical trends, player statistics, and more to help craft the perfect picks for you. If you head to the link in our bio and on house-enterprise.com, you can sign up for free to find a set of picks perfectly tailored for you. Filter Rhythm's suggestions by teams, props, and more to help create the perfect picks that fit your fandom. With the college basketball season now complete, Rhythm is here to help you win your way through the push for the professional basketball playoffs, otherwise known as the NBA. Download Rhythm, that is RITHMM. Create your account, find your perfect picks, and win big. House Enterprise and Rhythm are not responsible for any lost wages on picks you make. Gamble responsibly. Gambling problem, Peyton? Please call 1-800-GAMBLER. Again, we think Rhythm, they've been with us through this whole March Madness in the last couple of weeks, last month, basically. They've been awesome. You've seen our AI models. We've been using through them to predict some of the tournament games. Use them for baseball, too. Use them for NBA. NBA playoffs about to start. Hockey's the playoffs are about to start. So a lot of still good sports coming up. Use Rhythm, download it, and get started with AI help on your picks today, by the way. Well, let's talk about the national champions. They just went back-to-back for the first time since Florida and, ironically, Billy Donovan did in 06-07. If you remember, Florida went back-to-back. They brought all 5 starters back. Hurley lost a lot of pieces from last year's national title team, and it romped through the NCAA tournament, breaking a record in the process I never thought would be broken. To this day, in my experience watching college basketball and covering it, the 1996, they called them the Untouchable Cats. The title, and Rick Pitino had 10 NBA players on that team, had the highest scoring margin ever to this tournament. So what? That's almost 30 years. They've held the record for highest scoring margin in the tournament of 129. Villanova a couple years ago got close at 124. UConn set the record this tournament with a scoring margin of plus 140. If that don't tell you the domination through 6 games that this team laid a beat down on, they made Purdue in the national championship game last night look like every other team that they played through they made Purdue, who was by far and out the number 2 team in college basketball all year, a great team. They made them look like they were playing Georgetown on a Big East Tuesday. They made them look bad. Fellas, your thoughts on the history-making Dan Hurley's Connecticut Huskies going back-to-back for the first time since Florida did it?
I just want to point out that the first time UConn played Georgetown only lost by 13. So,
tomato. I was trying to think of a team that wouldn't be. I guess I should have said Xavier or something.
That was so mean and uncalled for. UConn is really good, plain and simple. Like, really good. They were really good all season. They were the best team all season. They were the best team again. And UConn just doesn't lose Final Four games, like, as a program. Like, I think I saw something
non-con.
Like,
they don't.
Yeah.
They lost one non-con game in 2 years, and that was Kansas earlier this year.
When Jim Calhoun was their coaches before that, UConn is like one of those programs where, like, I think in the Final Four, if you took their record and
they've never lost in the Final Four.
Like, fuck off.
They've never lost in the Final Four. They've won 6 titles, as Peyton talked about earlier, in 25 years. They've never lost. They're 24-0 in Final Four games in program history. That is insanity to never. It's like a guarantee. Connecticut gets to the Final Four. They're going to win this thing.
Yep.
And of the 6 titles, they backdoored their way into 2 of them, right? The Kimba year, they backdoored their way. They got on this incredible run. And then the 2014 year, they beat Kentucky. They backdoored their way by getting red hot with Shabazz Napier. And they backdoored their way. They had some breaks go their way in both those tournaments. But the other 4, I mean, you had Rip Hamilton. You had Emeka Okafor. You had Rudy Gay. You had all these incredible talent. And in the last 2 years, they were phenomenal. They don't lose in Final Fours, to your point, DeRosa. They just don't lose. And this is a program that is the ultimate all-or-nothing program. Meaning, yes, they've won 6 titles in 25 years, which is insane. But in the off years they don't win, they don't have great years. So it's like a very much all-or-nothing program. And to use a gambling term, they've came up red a lot here on the roulette wheel winning these tournament games. But, I mean, what a year. 37-3. They had 3 losses, and all 3 losses, Kansas, they went on the road and barely lost to, at that time, a really good Kansas team in Fog Allen where hardly anybody wins. They lose to Seton Hall, but Klingon was out. And then it took Creighton in Omaha making like 17 threes to beat them. Those are the only 3 games they lost. They beat the shit out of just about everybody else. I mean, Connecticut was amazing again this year, fellas. Peyton, your thoughts on UConn going back-to-back, I guess.
Well, shout out to Shannon Smith. He's on our live chat talking. He's from Cat Cave podcast. I think that's what it's called on Tobacco Sports. Yeah, Tobacco Sports Radio. He does that with Michael Davis. We were just on a radio show with them Monday last night talking about the championship game, recapping WrestleMania. So shout out to him for being here and helping us out and stuff like that. But as far as just real quick, just a little correction, because I thought when you guys said like they haven't lost the game at the Final Four, I'm like, wait a minute, is that really true? They lost in 2009. Did the year in the North Carolina?
Oh, that's right. Michigan State beat them.
Michigan State beat them. They're
That's right.
4-5, and like they've lost one game in the Final Four. They've been like
So
five
what,
Final
23-1 in Final Fours all time or something like that.
It's still a ridiculous stab. I'm just like, there's no way that's true. But they are 6-0 in title games, well, that's even crazier. But I mean, I'm 24 years old, and I'm not saying this team's the greatest team of all time because that's a very, very subjective opinion. A lot of people will probably disagree with that. A lot of people probably throw the 96 Kentucky team, the Untouchables, maybe a couple of the UNLV teams, Houston, blah, blah, blah. There's a lot of teams for that running. I'm saying for me personally, this is the best team I have ever watched play in my lifetime of watching college basketball. They had the adversity they had to go through this offseason. They lost like 7 top players or some BS like that. They brought back Tristan Newton. They brought back Donovan Clingan. There was talks of them being overrated. Why is Donovan Clingan rated as a top 5 player in the country when he barely played significant minutes last year playing under Adama Sanogo? And they beat the shit out of everybody last year in the tournament as a 4 seed. They come in here with probably the toughest draw of any 1 seed in this tournament. They beat everybody by double digits. They trailed a total of 4 minutes, and that was the Final Four game against Alabama in this NCAA tournament. And they trailed less last year in their tournament run. Back-to-back national titles. They potentially have 5 pros, and they're starting 5 right now. We'll see. We'll wait and see how that plays out in the NBA draft coming up here within a month here soon. But dominant performance. It was the best team in the country from the word to go. They ran through the Big East. They beat the shit out of everybody. Only non-con game they lost was at Kansas in the fall, which is not a bad loss at all. And Tristan Newton still had 32 points in that game. I mean, what more can you say about them? Dominant performance. They made a hard tournament look easy as fuck. They played this NCAA tournament on rookie mode, it feels like. It was ridiculous.
You're completely right, DeRosa. I mean, and I think Dan Hurley even mentioned that too in one of his comments. He goes, we're making hard tournament look really easy. And we all said this back in November when we watched this team play real early, and they beat up Indiana and they beat Texas and even the loss to Kansas. We said it. We're like, this team's like the most perfect team because they don't have a weakness. And it showed throughout the whole time. You couldn't just isolate like, well, I will take Clingan out of the game because then it's going to be Caravan to beat you. Well, we'll take Caravan. Well, no, it's going to be one of the guards that steps up and beat you. We'll try to get after them defensively. They're going to dice you up. Well, we'll make them guard. They're going to force turnovers and stay locked in their A gaps and stuff here. They're going to play help side. They're going to rotate over a block shot. They had no weakness, DeRosa. They had no weakness in that roster at all.
No. And the times when they looked most vulnerable was when Clingan was hurt. Yeah, okay. Their best defensive player was hurt. So, like, no shit, they looked vulnerable. And they went at back-to-back games, which granted, these were 2 non-tournament games, but at Butler, at Xavier. That's not an easy road trip. And without their most impactful defensive player, and they just found ways to win those games. Samson Johnson had one really good game, and then they ran Caravan at the 5 against Butler. And I think they had 9 points per possession in the second half of that game. UConn, they're just excellent. Like, there really isn't any real other word for it. This team was nearly flawless. And if we're putting them up against the greatest teams that we've watched, a game against 2018 Nova for me would
There you go.
Yeah, that 2018 Nova team, Dante DiVincenzo came off the bench. That guy's still playing in the NBA right now.
What a contrast and stop. Beautiful offense because Dan Hurley's like a nut too because he talks about he goes to practice, he goes to games, and then he'll go home and stay up late in the hours watching European basketball to study. He watches other college games. He watches the NBA. All he does is live, eat, sleep, and breathe basketball. So they run beautiful offense, different, like nonstop screening, off-ball, stagger screens, cuts. And then Villanova, you go 5-out offense against that team with the way they shot, handled, passed, they do small ball. Let's talk about that real quick. In comparison, some of the greatest teams we've ever seen in college basketball. The 96 Cats, still for me. This UConn team's right there. 2001 Duke with Carlos Boozer and Shane Battier and Jay Williams and that team. Chris Duhon was an amazing, amazing team. The UNLV team from 1990 with Grandma Ma and Stacey Ogman and Greg Anthony, a little younger, but remember and obviously went back and watched it. The 2009 North Carolina team with Tyler Hansborough and Ty Lawson and all those. Kentucky 2012, Anthony Davis and all them. So when you start to compare some of those teams, what are some of the teams that this 2024 version of UConn have now put themselves in the same lineage as, in your guys' opinion?
This is a little before my time when I was like really able to like process the sport. The second Florida team that won the title. How good were they?
Yeah, I forgot about Florida. Yeah.
Yeah. How good were they? Okay. Yeah. Because like, I remember they returned everybody.
Corey Brewer, Joakim Noah, Al Horford, Humphreys. I forget the white boy's name, Humphreys. That was a phenomenal team. They had it all. They could shoot, they could defend, they block shots. They had a Horford who could step out and hit jump shots from 20 feet.
Yep.
Those Florida teams were good.
Yeah.
Those Florida.
So
this UConn team was so, I mean, they were good.
I mean, the crazy looking back at this tournament and what's mind blowing about UConn's run and how much they just beat the shit out of everybody is like they did not shoot the three ball particularly well in any game. They shot decently well against Alabama, but they shot like a combined 30% from three, and they still beat everybody by double digits, and they had multiple guys. Like, if you would have told me, Josh, we talked about it when it was on Out of Pocket on last night or yesterday morning at noon from 1. Go check that out, by the way. We talked about it. The key to beating UConn, you got to get Donovan Clingan in foul trouble. He had 4 fouls. Johnson fouled out with 5. And they still lost by 15 points. And you mentioned, me and DeLosa had this conversation after the Illinois game against UConn, and we was talking about in DMs, and I was mentioning how I think this team is up there with like one of the greatest teams I've ever watched in my life. And he mentioned 2018 Villanova. 2018 Villanova probably has a little bit better. His probably has better guard play. They definitely shoot the ball well against better than UConn does. But if you play this game right now from 2018 Villanova, 2024 Connecticut, teams don't shoot the ball well against Connecticut this year. They don't. They have not shot the ball well against three. Alabama hit 8 threes in the first half. They hit 2 or 3 in the second half, and they still lost by double digits. Teams don't shoot the ball well from 3 against Connecticut squad. I think it's definitely up there for one of the best teams, definitely in my lifetime, but should be up there in the running for greatest team, one of the greatest teams of all time.
And they've definitely cemented their spot amongst the legacy. Let's talk about Dan Hurley and his legacy. That's 2 now. That's 2 national titles. The list of coaches who have won multiple titles, especially at one school, now he's starting to put himself in a new era and a new category. He's not that old, and he obviously still has a fire in his belly. And Peyton, I think for the first time in a couple of years since Coach K retired, and even before then, we said Bill Self was probably the better coach at the end of Coach K's run and Roy Williams. I think for the first time, somebody might have, modern right now, as we talk right now, might have surpassed Bill Self as the number 1 coach of college basketball. I think Dan Hurley's got to have that honor and accolade. I think you put Hurley 1. I think you put Bill Self a close number 2 now for the first time in a couple years. And when we look at Dan Hurley, whether he's at Connecticut his whole run or whether he does go to Kentucky or wherever, it just no signs of slowing him down because he's still motivated and he's passionate and he's got some swag to him. Now you hear about people when he walks in the AAU gyms in the summertime, it's like he has this aura about him. People are like, oh shit, we know Coach Hurley's here now. So the question is, how many can he get and how great can he be? Can he be one of these coaches that by the time he's done with this game, that we talk about in the same realm of Coach K, Patino, John Wooden, Bobby Knight, and all them, because he seems to be on his way.
So for starters, I still would have Bill Self as the best coach in college basketball. I still believe he is, especially because I mean, look, it's granted this is definitely just a prediction thing, but I think his 2019-20 team would have won the title. I think they would have won the title in the COVID year. I thought they were the best team in college basketball. That said, we'll never know. But Self's got 2. I think he would have had 3, but obviously they would not have been minus money to win the tournament. They don't win that over 50% of the time. Anything could have happened that would change how we approach this conversation, of course. But as for Hurley being like a dynasty coach, like one of those guys, he's on the way to be there. And if UConn keeps rolling through the Big East like this version of the Big East, yeah. If UConn does what Villanova did when Villanova was the team, yeah, he'll be there.
This got me thinking, Peyton, because if you remember about this time last year, maybe it was more the summertime, but there was rumors that came out that Connecticut was flirting with trying to leave the Big East again to go to the Big 12, I think. Do you think now that they've won back-to-back and you see the money structure of like SEC, Big Ten's got all the money, the Big 12 reformed now with Arizona coming on board, and we had the new teams in Houston. Dan Hurley's he's a competitor, man. And no offense to the Big East, but do you think he looks at like the new look Big 12 maybe and tries to force Connecticut's hand, be like, yeah, fuck it. Let's go over there and show them who's boss. And let's show them that, oh, they think we win because we're just in the Big East or we're this and that. Fuck it. We'll go to the out-and-out best conference and prove who's the big dog here.
Just bring it. We've got Houston coming in. Already came in. They won the league first time there. They have Arizona coming in, who's going to be really good next year probably as well. Like, it's already the best conference in college basketball. It's been that way for the last 2 years. I say come and get it. You want some, come get some, because at the end of the day, it's still Kansas conference. Like, it's been this way for the last 2 decades. Like, doesn't matter who comes in there. Like, I really don't care. Houston was great this year. Houston was incredible this year. Jamal Shea was the best player in the Big 12 this season. Probably, in my opinion, the second best point guard in the country. May have an argument to say he was the best point guard in the country, especially what happened in that Duke game, how bad they were without him on the floor compared to Tyler Clark or Marquette. But I think come and get it. And here's the exact reason. I hate to go back to our first segment. In the landscape of college basketball, how it's going, how there could potentially be like 4 like big major conferences where everybody is aligning with each other. Dan Hurley should go to Kentucky, because if they combine all these conferences, how they're going to fucking do it, all these mega conferences, he has a better chance at winning Kentucky than he does at winning at Connecticut. I hate to go back to that point from first segment, but it's night and day difference, and that's exactly why he should leave it.
SEC's got that fuck you money, too. That's very appealing. But DeRosa, I mean, kind of wrapping all this up with Connecticut. I mean, there wasn't much to talk about the game, honestly. We did kind of, I mean, Edey got 37, but he was it for Purdue. I thought Purdue's guards.
I thought Smith played all right. I'll give Smith credit.
Braden played all right. You know what? 12 points, okay. 8 assists. But like the other guys, like Fletcher Lawyer reverted back to freshman year Fletcher Lawyer. Lance Jones got brought in for this type of game. He had 5 points.
His worst game.
Trey Kaufman ran. They got no help outside of Edey and then Braden Smith, a little bit. And then Connecticut, Newton, 2 years in a row, they've won national championships. 2 years in a row, he's the MOP. This year he goes for 20 points, 5 rebounds, 7 assists. Caravan didn't contribute much scoring-wise, but it was the other plays, getting a rebound or switching over and cutting a drive off, the hustle plays. Cam Spencer, 11. Stephon Castle made some huge shots there in the second half to put the lead to like 17. He had 15 points. Klingon had 11. Of course, he went up against a very tall task, we would say, against Zach Edey, but Purdue just didn't. They look like a shell themselves, and I think that's all credit to Connecticut. I mean, that's what they did to teams all year long. They made good teams look average, and that's crazy because Purdue was such a damn good team this year.
One thing I think they did well. Do you want me to go, or you want to go first, Peyton?
No, go ahead.
Yeah,
go ahead.
One thing I think they did very well. I thought they game planned for this game really well. They were going to give Zach Edey really whatever one-on-one, but they put Castle on Smith, and it really took him out of the game.
Athleticism, size.
Exactly. Yeah. And like Smith, when he would get downhill and get in the ball screen, he was able to get his, but you took him out of the game. The ball wasn't moving as well. Those post-entry passes were a lot tougher just by the way they pressured the ball. They ran the shooters off the line, made them go inside to make that pass to Edey. I thought they game planned really well. And even though to answer Trev's question, no, I do not think they win this title without Stephon Castle. Absolutely not. He turned himself into a defensive stopper, and this team got so much better as a result of it.
Well, think about this too. How, again, we talked about last week with Seth Davis from CBS. The hands of fate, one way or the other, affect the whole line of things. Imagine, again, if Connecticut got Nick Timberlake. They don't get Cam Spencer, probably. Mm-hmm. If Cam Spencer's not on Connecticut, do they win the title? Probably not. Because he was the heart and soul of that team all year long. Fiery, emotional, hit big shot after big shot, turned himself into a halfway decent defender, could run the offense exactly the way Coach Hurley wanted it. If they don't get Cam Spencer and they got Nick Timberlake instead, are we sitting here talking about Connecticut as back-to-back champions? And I would say probably not.
I agree. I kind of wish they would have got Tim Blake because I didn't want him at Kansas, especially the year they had this year. So damn it. I got 2 points I wanted to make, and I want to. Duosa made one of them. Probably the main point I was going to talk about. The defensive game plan from Hurley and UConn, I think, was excellent because what they did is when Kling was on the floor, they just allowed him to play one-on-one with Zach Edey, let Zach Edey go for 40, let him do his work. When they were playing 2v2, they played against Zach Edey and Braden Smith, and they just shut down. They pit ball pressure on Fletcher Lawyer, Mason Gillis, and Lance Jones, and they said, hey, one of these 3 guys are going to beat us. You take them out of the game, then Zach Edey probably has to go for 60 and 30 to win this game, and he went for almost 40, and they still lost by 15. So the defensive game plan from Dan Hurley and Connecticut was excellent. Now, Dan Hurley should deserve a lot of credit for this, for the way he approached this offseason and getting Cam Spencer a late Porter addition, the development of Stephon Castle, Trisha Newton, blah, blah, blah. A lot of credit should go to Luke Murray as well because this offense is so fucking hard to game plan against.
Intricate. That's the best word, intricate.
It's so many sets that they run. They got so much movement. Teams are going to try to replicate and duplicate what he has laid out at Connecticut. And let me tell you something. They're not going to be able to do it as efficiently as he'd be able to do it at UConn. And that's a big reason why Connecticut has been so damn dominant these last 2 years, because they just run so much offensive sets offensively. Like, it's so hard to game plan against. Like, you can't defend against that.
It goes back to that point we were talking about where Hurley says, I watch European basketball late at night because I love the game and I want to study. Look at all the screening and cutting that this Connecticut team did, where they're pulling Klingon from like away from the low block to like 15 feet up to catch a pass because somebody's going on a back cut. The way they set stagger screens, like banana cut screens, they would have a guy roll off of it. And instead of like coming to the ball, he would roll to the rim, have the defender trail, and he would read it. They'd set all these screens. They would dribble handoff into a screen. Then you would screen away. Then you would cut from the baseline. That's European basketball. Passing, cutting, moving, screening to a T. And it fucked everybody up this year. It just fucked everybody up.
For real though, like Zach Edey is 7'4". Like, how do you defend against that? Like, they play drop coverage pretty much the entire game, and back-to-back possessions. Johnson got back-to-back lobs and just dunked when Zach Edey was still on the floor. Like, if you don't play against drop coverage and you have him hedge out, then you have all the rotations are mixed up defensively. Like, how do you defend against that? It makes it really difficult. That's why I feel like you got to switch things up. You got to press, maybe throw out a zone. Just keep fucking shit guessing or keep shit moving because they just run so many sets offensively. It's so tough to guard. Big shout out to Luke Murray.
DeRosa, you can't let them, like, moving forward against Connecticut, if they're going to keep running this, Coach Hurley's there. I agree with Peyton. You got to give them different looks. You cannot let them get a look at you, what they've scouted, and know what their game plan is. You have to throw monkey wrenches at them because more than likely it's not going to go in your favor if you do.
Yeah, you got to throw 2, 3, 4 some odd different looks at them. And while I don't know if they'll be able to run this intricate offense next year because you likely lose the starting 5, that I think it'll take some time to build this offense up. But yeah, you're going to have to throw different looks at them. If they're just going to be able to, as you guys mentioned, run all the backdoor cuts, run all like the slips off screens, or run like the very intricate actions. Like, I feel like they have a counter to your counter to your counter in some of their sets.
Well prepared.
Some teams would counter by switch, like they'd switch the actions. Hurley would counter that by slipping guys to the bucket. Like Caravan got a couple slip layups that I saw. So yeah, really intricate there. And to the point Peyton made earlier, Luke Murray and Kamani Young are 2 of the assistants on UConn staff right now. Those guys at someday, I think, will be high major head coaches.
Probably sooner.
Pretty soon. Yeah.
I mean, if I was a team like a mid-major or somebody needing a coach right now, they would probably get a call.
Yeah.
They'd probably get a call because I think now's the time. So let's start wrapping some of this up. Let's start, it's our final episode of the end this season off the right way. Let's take a look back at the season, some highlight moments that stand out to you. Obviously, Connecticut back-to-back champions. Shout out to the women's game. They produced a really good tournament as a whole. South Carolina goes undefeated. They beat Caitlin Clark and Iowa in the national title game. Really fun game. I forgot the freshman girl's name.
Juju Watkins?
No, for South Carolina. She had 17, hit big shot after big shot on Sunday. Women's game was awesome again this year. Dawn Staley's amazing. But when we look back at the season as a whole to kind of wrap things up, talk to me about some of your guys' highlights that stand out to you.
Josh, I'm gonna let you go first. I might have to think about this for a minute.
Damn it, I had to think about it too.
Oh, shit.
Day one, I remember the JMU over Michigan State. I remember that very vividly.
There you go.
There are a couple like huge games. I remember a couple like double, triple overtime type games. Let's see. What are some other like really big picture moments? I mean, Dalton connected a couple games where he went for 50.
Dalton connect as a whole season was just a memory nonstop.
Yeah.
Peyton, have you thought of anything yet?
Yeah, I'm just going to start one. I'm only going to give one for Kansas. That Kentucky game, the Champions Classic, coming back down from that game, because that really put Kentucky on the, like, obviously it's Kentucky, they're always going to be in the map, but that really showed, like, hey, this Kentucky team, if they can play some defense, they can be really freaking good. And that was like the forefront of just showing really Reed Shepherd, reason why he's been a top 5 pick. Because if he didn't have a game like that, who knows what kind of season he would have had to have in order to accomplish that. But that game was insane. There's a lot of insane games. JMU beating Michigan State and East Lansing. First game of the season was ridiculous. Dalton Connect, his progression coming out of nowhere and just dominating the season, being as crazy as he was. TJ Shannon with the whole bullshit outside of the court coming back and still beating had the tournament run that he had was incredible. There's a lot of great moments that it's hard for me to put into one, but it was a lot of great moments out there. And like I mentioned, it's really hard to come it down to like a couple of moments off the top of my head, especially if I haven't thought about it.
The Arizona FAU game was really fun. I remember.
Oh, yeah, back in December, right?
Yeah, about that one. Yeah.
It went to like 3 overtimes or something.
Something like that. Yeah, and like that was like FAU's like peak. Like when FAU was good, that was like a game of like good
got
FAU.
them in the tournament.
We didn't get good FAU. I don't think any other time. We got good FAU that day.
That's probably the game that got them in the tournament. To be honest.
Oh, absolutely.
I got a couple. NC State's run, I know it's recent, but this run through the ACC tournament to the Final Four was magical, and it's why we love that time of year so much, because they were dead. They were dead in the water. They were going to make a coaching change, and honestly, Calipari probably would have went to NC State because he had almost done it before he came to Kentucky years ago. He had flirted with NC State, so that would have been crazy. Calipari and North Carolina State if Kevin Keys gets fired, but that run and getting to love DJ Burns, and that was a fun run. Indiana State, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, baby. Indiana State getting to watch that offense all year long and being like darlings of the nation's eye too. Indiana State was a blessing this year. And by the way, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar hit the transfer portal a couple hours ago.
St. Louis.
So
slow. You
think he's going to follow shirts to St. Louis?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right, we'll see. The Dalton Connect, I mean, just what a pleasure it was to watch that dude come from Northern Colorado and drop 30, 35, 40 on somebody nightly. Mark Sears had a great year. Antonio Reeves, like the SEC, the high-end SEC play this year with all offense, little defense, put up some incredibly entertaining contests this year. I thought the SEC was highly entertaining at the top end.
How about the emergence of fucking South Carolina out of nowhere? Like,
that's right. Yeah.
Like, what the hell? We had them predicted to finish last. Most people in media had them predicted to finish last in the SEC, and they came out, made the tournament, and like ridiculous season for them. Did not expect that coming into this year, but the emergence of them out of nowhere just completely shocked the living shit out of me.
Yep. The Mountain West proven to be a power conference this year with getting 6 teams in the NCAA tournament. I thought the Mountain West had a great, obviously the tournament didn't go well, but you can't base everything upon the tournament, especially when conference stuff. It's really weird.
Even with the seed lines of the Mountain West teams.
But Mountain West,
they were fine.
Say again?
Just the seed lines of the teams in the Mountain West, they performed to expectations. Like you're a 10 seed, you are expected to lose. They're 10 seeds lost, but they won a play-in game. San Diego State made a Sweet 16. Like you had
an incredible year.
Utah State winning a game in the tournament. Like they performed to expectation.
Like
they had an incredible year.
Yeah, to go, obviously, Doris is a Big East guy. Like the run of the season that Seton Hall had this year, they won the NIT. They beat the top 3 teams in the Big East: Connecticut, Marquette, and Creighton all in their home place, and they did it in a span of like 2-3 weeks or some bullshit like that. And they went on to win the NIT tournament, which congratulations, by the way, to them. I know we didn't speak too much of them this year. It should have been NCAA tournament team, most likely. If you're going to argue that the Big East should have had 4 teams, they 100% should have been the 4th team. Other than that, hats off to Sheen Holloway, and great year for them.
And then Trev says the Maui tournament, where we had all those incredible teams, it wasn't played on the main island, like Maui. It was played on Oahu or whatever that one was. But you're talking about Purdue, Kansas, Gonzaga, Tennessee, UCLA, Syracuse. Incredible tournament. I mean, I wish we could have avoided that one Purdue-Tennessee game when there was like 55 fouls. But nonetheless, Trevor says ACC proved the doubters wrong. Only in the tournament. In the tournament. The regular season was...
Yeah, can I just take some time? And I left this up here just so I can just speak on it. Like, they do this every fucking year. The last 3 years, they've been dog shit in the regular season. They've had one team, like Duke was really good last year and pretty damn good last year, and they end up getting beat in the second round. Like, they always have one of these 2 teams, whether it's Miami coming out from a 4 seed, going to the Final Four, Carolina coming as an 8 seed, going to the national championship game. They have one team, Clemson, whatever it is, that just makes a great tournament run or have really high success in the tournament. And people will think like, oh, just because they get 4 teams in the Sweet 16, like, oh, they were one of the best conference of college basketball. No, they fucking weren't. You can't take a tournament when it's one game format and say over a 32-game regular season, that matters more than what they did over a whole body of work. You can't fucking do that. The ACC was dog shit this year. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. The ACC was not good. Outside of North Carolina, tell me what happened, what the ACC do in the regular season this year. Enough of that. They were not good. They had a great tournament success, but it's one-game tournament. If they played this game like a 7-game series, I guarantee maybe one team, maybe North Carolina would have made it to the Final Four and maybe to the second weekend. Other than that, none of them would have made it past the first weekend.
If you take away North Carolina State's miracle run, and then the fact that Virginia got in over a Seton Hall or Indiana State or whoever you want to say, they would have had 3 out-and-out tournament teams. North Carolina, Duke, Clemson. That would have been it. They got fortunate North Carolina State made the run they did, and they got fortunate that Virginia got in, and then we've seen them lay the goose egg of all goose eggs. So I don't like the idea, and I've said this for a long time. Conference play stops once the NCAA tournament begins. It's over. You can't go back revisionist. You can't go back revisionist history. It ends. We've seen what we've seen across 18 or 20 conference games. We've seen them in the non-con when they go against other top-level teams, a lot of times from the Power 6, Power 7 conferences. You can't – I hate that. Like when Kentucky would make Final Fours, national championships in some really piss-poor SEC leagues when it was really Kentucky, Florida, Tennessee, and then maybe the occasional Alabama, Georgia, Arkansas, whoever. And Kentucky would make a deep run, and then some of the SEC would be like, oh, yeah, SEC was awesome. No, they weren't. Kentucky ran through a bad SEC, or Florida ran through a bad SEC. So I hate that. The conference, rah, rah, rah. Yeah, no, the conference was what it was in conference play. It doesn't count in AC or an NCAA tournament game. NCAA tournament.
Yeah, and if we go back to last year, like the American Conference had a really good tournament. They had FAU in the Final Four. They had North Texas, I think, won the NIT. They had another team winning either in the CBI final or they won the CBI final. I don't remember what it was.
CBI, and CBI, I think UAB played North Texas in the NIT final.
Exactly, you're right. They had really good tournament sets. Are we really going to talk about them like being like one of the top 3 conferences of the country because they had the best tournament postseason run than any conference in the country? Like, no. So why are we doing this with the ACC or any other conference outside of that? I don't understand it.
I mean, listen, I'm full
Conference USA teams, whatever. You know what I meant, Trevor. Shut up. Same deal. Same fucking deal. Like, I think they're all in American this year anyway, so the same deal.
Yeah, I feel it. I feel it. But no, I don't like that. Like, and listen, since end of season, the conference affiliation, like rooting rah-rah for your conference because your team plays in that conference is weird to me. And Michael, I love you. Big East people are the worst about it because it's like, Connecticut runs through the tournament. The Big East gets a nut.
So let me explain this first before you make your point. Ever since ESPN did the Requiem for the Big East and basically said the Big East was dead.
Was like 6 or 6.
Yeah, like a couple years back. Ever since then, it's like Big East people are like, all right, you're not just going to disrespect us anymore. Like, Requiem my ass. Like, this is bullshit. So that's the root of it.
Well, okay, so I'm glad you laid that down. But it's just like, I just see a lot of the Big East, so that's the reason I'm kind of picking them a little bit. But it's like, Connecticut runs through the NCAA tournament, wins back-to-back titles. Seton Hall runs through the NIT. But all you still hear from, like yesterday, well, Seton Hall should have been in the NCAA tournament. For what? Maybe they should have been. But to win a game or two, like, I'm going to ask, like, I'll use Kentucky again. When they were make Final Fours, win NCAA tournament titles, when SEC people would be like, oh, yay, SEC. Are you getting a banner for it? You're an Alabama fan. Are you going to hang a banner that says national champions for my conference? Who cares? The only reason I care about my conference affiliation being Kentucky is I want the conference to be good enough to help Kentucky's metrics. When it gets to tournament play, I don't give a single shit if they win a game or win the whole thing. I don't care.
Yeah, like
this conference like alignment affiliation to me is weird when you have a fan of a certain team.
Butler could also use the money you get from UConn winning the tournament as a conference. That's another part of it.
Yeah, I get that. I get that. But it's just like coming at more people that's just like, oh my God, Seton Hall should have been in. I'm like, but they weren't. They weren't. So I don't know. It's weird to me. There's weird behavior people exhibit nowadays. And then you're right. The SEC football is the absolute worst about it. There's not a sport in the world that has a conference. SEC football is the worst about it. They're the absolute worst. Alabama dominates for all those years. Georgia dominates, or when LSU wins, or whoever. Yeah, you have SEC, Kentucky football. We're like, yeah, we're in the SEC. We've got champions in here. Well, we're never going to win it, so why do you care?
Yeah, like that.
Weird behavior. It really is weird behavior.
Like, I'm an LSU football fan. If Alabama's in the fucking college football playoff, I'm not going to go root for Alabama. Like, yeah, roll tide. Let's go Alabama. Go do it for the SEC. No. Whoever they're facing, I don't think it's their ass whooped. Why? Because it's a damn rivalry game. And I don't give a shit about conference alignment and all this other BS. And the same thing goes for college basketball. You think when Duke got beat by North Carolina in the Final Four and they went on to play Kansas, they were like, go Tar Heels, UNC, yeah.
Could you imagine?
Kansas sucks. Yeah, like, no, they weren't. They were rooting for Kansas. Like, piss off.
Could you imagine? Like, I don't know. That it is what it is. And I don't mean to pick on the Big East. They're just the most vocal I see on Twitter. Very vocal. And they will let you know about it ad nauseum. I'm like, yeah. Okay. But nonetheless, an incredible season. Like, bless. This wraps up officially year number 6 for us. DeRosa came on with us. Might as well stay full time. It's been an incredible year. So the last minute or two while we're on air here, I'll let you guys take just what a year 6 for us as a whole, right? ECB. It was a great year for House of College Hoops, House Enterprise. We did a lot between live games, covering games every single night of the week from the start of the year in November till right now at the end. The connections I know all of us personally made here at ECB with coaches and media and players. It was an incredible year, fellas. You guys should be very proud, and I'm proud to have you guys all part of the team, part of the family. But parting shots, kind of wrapping up this season as a whole. DeRosa, I'll let you start.
Yeah. First of all, it's been so much fun. I remember Josh and I, it was because we asked you to be on Ding and DeRosa to talk SEC. I remember that. I think that was the first time. Yeah.
Back in like October, September, something like that.
Yeah. It was like early preseason. Yeah. So that was a ton of fun. Then getting to hop on here has been so much fun. I still fucking hate Peyton. But I like Trevor. I'm kidding. Peyton's a man. Getting to meet Trevor, doing the show with Phil, all these guys. I mean, we had the show on with Coach Acuff. There were a couple other guys I talked to. Name's going to skip my head, but
Seth Davis last week and Eric Haslam and all these different people. Yeah.
100%. That's been so much fun for me. And then, I mean, I'm a main character a bit here. I was able to go to the fucking Big East tournament.
That's crazy, dude. That's fucking awesome.
That was awesome. So shout out to Tommy, Chris, all the guys at Road to the Garden. It's been such a fun year. I hope my teams can be better next year, because like then I can actually talk about my teams come February. But man, I'm very excited, and I cannot wait. Year 7 ECB. I hope they choose to have me back as much as they did this year. So much
brother, fun. You'll be back. You know this. Sir. Peyton, kind of final parting shots, wrapping the year up?
I mean, I was gonna say some nice shit about DeRosa, and then he just basically just roasted me live on air. So I don't know if I want to. I was gonna offer him a job next year. Like, when is he? I was gonna offer him like, when is he gonna drop Chris the Dinga, and I'm gonna drop you guys and me and him do our own shit together. But no, like he had to roast me, so we ain't doing that. So, but no, listen, it's from the heart here. Trevor, this is his first year on board with us. The magazine did really well. Shout out to him. He went to, I think, 40 games this year, covering mainly all for the CAA deal down there when he's living at. Big shout out to him. He was a great addition. Phil he joined for like 1 episode, 2 episodes, maybe not even that. I know 100% he's on the tournament special. He had a lot to do with his job.
A lot of behind the scenes, yeah.
A lot of behind the scenes shit. He did a very good job of getting us Coach Donnie Jones from Stetson, D.A. Houston from Longwood. Like, he's done a lot behind the scenes, so big shout out to him. Year 6 exceeded any expectations I particularly had. The House Enterprise, we all ate this year. Our house show that we did had like over 1,000 viewers. We had like over 3,000 viewers a couple weeks ago for our tournament special or whatever episode that was. Like, it's been a ride. Me and Josh went to OVC title game, seen a great game, got to interview Drew Thelwell. It's been a hell of a roller coaster, a hell of a ride, and we're just getting started. Year 7 will start very, very soon. We'll probably get together, have some type of a meeting, get plans together for next year. Content's going to keep on getting pushed out. Have a lot of videos and shit planned for the off season. I'm calling out 2 people. I am calling out Michael Davis, and I am calling out Desmond Johnson from Out of Pocket. 2v2 tag team debate. Is Kentucky the best job in college basketball right now of all time? We'll do it on their terms. They can pick their place. They can pick the time. I don't care. 2v2, the Burton Brothers versus the D&D Connection, ECB versus the Out of Pocket. Anytime, boys. Y'all respond to us, and we'll get this shit figured out. Year 6 has commenced. And like DeRosa said, I really hope fucking Louisville's back next year so I can start throwing out the L. And it's the first time since like the 40s that Kentucky and Louisville will have new head coaches coming into next season.
Good point. Forgot to bring that up.
It's going to get wild. Big shout out to everybody who listened. Bracket challenge, blah, blah, blah. I had a blast.
It'll be the first time this upcoming season that the Bluegrass rivalry will have brand new head coaches at the same time to their respective teams. That'll make things even spicier, even more interesting. Wrapping up, you guys already said everything. I'm just grateful. You look at the Facebook numbers, Peyton, we added like 400 people, and that's not including some of the people we had to delete because they were bots or they were acting like an asshole. Like 400 new members in the 5 months of college basketball. Twitter, we gained, like 100, 150, 200 new followers or whatever it was, an insane amount. The magazine exceeded expectations in year 2, even with the hiccups. It did really well for a non-national independent publication. The season, our live numbers, steady, did very well. Our downloads were great. Then at the end of the year, everything just exploded. I mean, we got brand new connections. We kept some of the old ones. Shout out to all the coaches that blessed us to be friends with us and take time out of their day to come on and give us tips and their time. Players from Drew Thelwell to D.A. Houston to anybody we've had on. Our friends at Bracketology, Jonathan Warner was awesome with us this year. Eric Haslam doing analytics. Seth Davis being a supporter of ours. I hope he knows how much that means to us and our growth, because we've seen it in the last couple weeks alone since he's really started to share and follow us. Just a blessed year, man. Year 6, when we started this, never dreamed of this. Always hoped it would. That just means year 7. We've got a team that is ready to ride. We've got a game plan. We're going to start getting together. And yeah, content. We're going to take a well-deserved little break here. But when we come back, start doing summer shows, you can expect old school reviews. You can expect live breaking news of coaching changes or anything breaking happens in the college basketball landscape from spring to summer. We're going to get on here and talk about it. Hopefully I can get Trevor to do a couple of the trivia shows over here like he does on his 2-pointers. We've got a lot of fun content, exclusive interviews. We will have Coach Donnie Jones back at some point. He said he'll do a full-length interview with us. We're going to have a lot of content heading into year 7, but wrapping up year 6, guys, I'm blessed. I know we are all blessed. Thank you to the 380 people who followed along with us for the episode 186. You guys don't know how much it means to us. Wrapping up for a great year 6 from Team ECB. We thank you all. We will let you know when our next episode comes. We are going to take a little break, but we won't be gone too long. But until then, thank you all for a great year. Congratulations to UConn going back-to-back. Congratulations to South Carolina women for completing an undefeated season. And thank you guys once more. And then until a couple weeks' time in episode 187, thank you guys one last time, and we will catch you guys down the road. See ya.